The question many viewers are now asking is simple. How did a street performer suddenly become the most talked-about voice of the season? Jourdan Blue's rise from the sidewalks of New Orleans to the center of a worldwide social media storm has unfolded with the kind of unpredictability usually reserved for fiction. For months, he stood on corners near Bourbon Street with little more than a speaker wired to a car battery and a determination to be heard. Passers-by occasionally filmed clips of his performances, and small pockets of online viewers began to comment on the distinct grit in his voice, but nothing prepared anyone for what happened when he appeared on America's Got Talent. The clip of his audition has now traveled far beyond traditional television audiences, capturing the attention of news outlets, commentators, and millions of casual viewers who had never followed AGT before. The sudden jump in interest reflects something deeper than a single performance. Many viewers say they sensed a story behind his voice long before they learned the details surrounding his early struggles. Analysts note that, in an era where audiences are increasingly drawn to authenticity, Jourdan's quiet, grounded presence offered a contrast to the usual polished presentation of televised competitions. And as more viewers began searching for who he was and where he came from, the story behind the man became just as compelling as the music itself. In the years before his AGT appearance, Jourdan Blue lived a reality marked by instability, long nights, and a series of moments that could have pushed his life in far darker directions. Reporters who visited New Orleans documented accounts from locals who remembered him performing for tips while managing the heavy responsibilities of fatherhood and navigating periods without stable housing. Challenges followed him from his teens into adulthood, and at several points he faced situations so intense that many who knew him privately wondered whether he would make it out intact. Despite these hardships, Jourdan continued performing on the streets, viewing music as both an emotional outlet and the one constant that kept him moving forward. Witnesses often remarked that his performances carried a weight uncommon among typical street acts. His voice conveyed a mix of exhaustion, resilience, and hope that made listeners look twice. These details came into sharper focus after his viral moment, when interviews revealed how close he had come to vanishing into the margins of the city's nightlife. Each part of his past, the nights spent navigating uncertainty, the responsibility of raising a young child, the effort to rebuild stability, added layers to the story now reaching headlines. And the more viewers learned, the more they wanted to understand how this singer found the strength to keep going. When Jourdan stepped onto the AGT stage, he seemed aware of the high stakes before him. Reporters present at the tapping noted that the atmosphere changed the moment he introduced himself. His quiet, almost hesitant demeanor stood in stark contrast to the booming environment of the studio audience. But when he began singing, the shift was immediate and unmistakable. Judges leaned forward. Audience members stopped moving. Conversations halted. The performance didn't rely on vocal tricks or dramatic presentation. Instead, it was the kind of raw, emotionally lived-in expression rarely captured on national television. At the final note, the judges reportedly exchanged looks that suggested they knew they had just witnessed a standout moment. Then came Howie Mandel's golden buzzer, a decision that not only propelled Jourdan into the next round, but ignited an online wave of viewers demanding to know more about the man behind the music. Analysts covering talent show trends noted that golden buzzer moments often go viral, but this one spread with a velocity seen only a handful of times in the show's history. The clip's traction raised questions about whether the public was responding to the story, the sound, or the emotional intensity. And the answer, as most media outlets concluded, was a combination of all three. Data from social trending trackers revealed that Jourdan Blue's audition clip became one of the most rapidly shared AGT moments of the past several seasons. TikTok creators reacted with hundreds of stitched videos analyzing his tone, his expression, and the lived experience that seemed to pour out of every word. YouTube compilations appeared almost instantly, collecting footage from his street performing days and showing the contrast between his earlier performances and the polished clarity of his audition. Instagram accounts dedicated to vocal analysis, inspiration, and street music culture all highlighted the clip in their feeds, often noting how Jourdan's restraint, his refusal to oversing or dramatize, made the performance stand out. Comment sections across platforms filled with reactions from viewers who described feeling unexpectedly moved, some saying they found themselves replaying the clip without fully understanding why it resonated so strongly. The momentum only grew as mainstream news outlets began picking up the story, not merely because the video was popular, but because the public's response reflected growing hunger for genuine, unfiltered artistry. And as clips from his earlier street performances resurfaced, people saw the consistency, the same emotional honesty, the same powerful delivery, strengthening the narrative that this was not a fluke but the emergence of a major talent. As journalists dug deeper into Jourdan's background, a complex picture emerged, one marked by hardships that he managed to navigate with remarkable determination. Sources close to him shared accounts of nights when he performed despite intense physical discomfort, such as incidents where he reportedly pushed through severe illness rather than risk losing momentum in his career. His early years were even more difficult. He had faced situations involving dangerous environments, periods where he had almost no support, and pressures that might have derailed a less resilient individual. Though he avoids discussing specifics, interviews suggest there were instances where he came alarmingly close to falling victim to the unpredictable streets of New Orleans nightlife. Additionally, there were personal battles involving substances during his teen years, including a moment where he nearly lost his life, an incident referenced indirectly in several interviews. The fact that he survived and continued performing speaks to a perseverance that viewers now see reflected in the controlled strength of his voice. Those who followed his street music career recall that he often performed not because he wanted applause, but because music grounded him during times when everything else felt unstable. These revelations reframed his AGT performance as more than a musical breakthrough. It became evidence of a man who refused to surrender to circumstances designed to break him. After his audition gained national attention, industry observers began speculating about the direction his music career might take. Jourdan has expressed interest in releasing original work that reflects the emotional weight of his past, shifting away from the covers that first drew attention on the streets. Interviews indicate that he views this moment not as a chance to chase fame, but as an opportunity to share messages of resilience, hope, and rebuilding. The connection with his son is a driving force behind his ambition, and he often mentions wanting to create a future that demonstrates persistence even when circumstances appear hopeless. Music industry analysts note that his authenticity gives him an advantage in a market saturated with heavily produced acts. Audiences respond strongly to performers whose voices carry real stories. However, the path forward is not without pressure. Viral moments can open doors, but they also set expectations. Jourdan now faces the challenge of transforming public fascination into lasting artistic impact. Still, early indicators, including rising follower counts, engagement from major content creators, and interest from music platforms, suggest that listeners are ready to support whatever he releases next. For now, the industry is watching closely to see how he navigates the transition from street performer to recognized artist. Media analysts observing the phenomenon surrounding Jourdan's rise point out that modern audiences are increasingly drawn to narratives rooted in realism. Viewers, oversaturated with manufactured talent arcs and glossy celebrity portrayals, respond strongly to performers whose backgrounds reflect grit rather than privilege. Jourdan embodies that shift. His story includes instability, responsibility, and determination, and his music carries the unmistakable imprint of someone who has lived through adversity. Commentators across networks have noted that while many talented singers appear on AGT each year, few bring a combination of lived experience, vulnerability, and vocal power compelling enough to spark national conversation. Additionally, the timing of his rise plays a role. In a period where many people face economic strain, uncertainty, and emotional fatigue, a figure like Jourdan, someone who pushed forward despite everything working against him, becomes a symbol of perseverance. Social media sentiment analyses reveal that viewers frequently use words like real, raw, and unfiltered when describing him, suggesting that the public sees him not just as a performer but as a representation of resilience. This alignment between public sentiment and personal narrative is rare, and it explains why the conversation surrounding him continues to grow instead of fading after the initial viral wave. With his AGT audition still circulating widely, Jourdan Blue's future appears filled with possibility. Music producers, talent scouts, and vocal coaches have begun publicly remarking on his potential, while fan communities across platforms continue to share older street performance clips as a way of tracing his journey. This widespread attention has transformed him from a contestant into a subject of cultural discussion. Analysts believe his trajectory will depend heavily on how he uses the momentum he's gained. Viral fame offers visibility, but also demands quick strategy to maintain audience engagement. Still, those familiar with his work describe him as grounded, thoughtful, and committed to delivering music that reflects the emotional truth of his past. Meanwhile, viewers who discovered him only days or weeks ago continue to express curiosity about what his next release might sound like. Many say that his voice, textured by experience and anchored by sincerity, could thrive in genres ranging from soul to acoustic storytelling. Whether he wins AGT or not may ultimately matter less than the path this moment has opened. As his story continues to evolve, one thing is clear. A singer who once relied on a car battery to be heard is now reaching audiences far beyond anything he ever imagined, and the world is waiting to see what he does with the microphone now firmly